Okay, welcome everybody to the second edition of Voicebot Live. I'm Brett Kinsella, your host each week, and we have two amazing guests for you today. We're going to talk to two people that have really been on the cutting edge of voice AI in the car. And I've had the opportunity to speak with them a few times. I'm really happy that we're going to have the opportunity to share some of their insight with you today. A couple things that I should probably bring up. First of all, some of you have noticed on Twitter, we're doing 31 days of charts. So a lot of the people watching today really like the data around voice and AI. So what I would tell you is that if you follow me on Twitter, at Brett Kinsella, you'll be able to see the charts that we're putting out every day. We've got 3 down, and we'll be doing one every day this month. So just wanted to point that out. We're going to talk about some new data today, actually, that came up from some surveys we just did. So it's going to be brand new, and we've got a couple of validation points on it as well. So I'm very excited about being able to share that today during our conversation. One other thing I should mention, for those of you who are in Clubhouse, we are going to have an after show. So right around 4 o'clock Eastern time, so an hour from now, we'll be starting up with Sanjay and Simon. And I think it might be the first time that they'll be hosts of a room, co-hosting with me. And we're going to do a lot of Q&A there. So we will do some Q&A ahead of time here, but I never know how much time we're going to have for Q&A here. So what I would do is I would definitely, in your chat, I would add some of your questions as we go along. You can do them anytime. Andrew and Eric will be looking at those to see about what might be good questions for us to address at the end of this show. And then there's going to be a whole nother set of time. We're going to do maybe 40, 45 minutes in Clubhouse. We'll be able to get up on stage and ask questions as well. And we'll be able to continue the discussion, which is going to be really fun. So I just want to make sure that people knew about that. The other thing is we will be giving away a cool gift today. Anybody who has ever seen a Blue Yeti. So that's essentially a professional podcast mic these days. And I use it for maybe 150 of my podcasts, but it makes you sound great on Zoom. So everybody's doing that today. Have good mic. I'm happy to be able to bring that to you. So we'll talk about that towards the end. You had to have registered for this and attend live in order to win. But we want to make sure that we have an opportunity to give that away later today. Okay, so the first thing I should do, while we're waiting, we're going to bring Sanjay up from the green room. He's going to be the first guest today. But I thought I would share something with everybody. Came across this not too long ago. Give you a chance to look at this. All right, I picked this cartoon out special for all of you, in part because I think that this is very prescient to what we're going to be talking about today because of all the integration of different tools that we have out there. Is one of the things that's going to be changing the way we're interacting with the car. But so why don't we bring Sanjay up onto the stage right now? And I think the first thing we should talk about, Sanjay, is why don't you just give your, 15-second introduction of who you are for the audience. I think they mostly know who you are, but let's hear it from you.
Absolutely, Brett. Thank you. That cartoon was very interesting, the future to come. But anyways, welcome. Thank you, firstly, for inviting me. And, good morning, good afternoon to all the listeners here. My name is Sanjay Dhawan. I am a CEO of Cerence. We are a NASDAQ-listed, publicly listed company, about 18 months old. We're focused on conversational AI platform for transportation and mobility, and so we're one of the platforms that you interact with under the private label of various different OEMs, and we're very fortunate to have BMW also joining us today. So should be interesting discussion.
Yeah, transportation and mobility, but you're in over 300 million cars, and then you've been expanding into other things, even elevators we heard this year. So that's a lot of data points. It's going to be fun. But before we go any further, I have to comment on your fashion sense. That's a wonderful.
I know.
You have on there.
I wore it especially for today.
That's funny because normally you have your Cerence wear on, and I'm highly honored that you put that in today.
Of course.
So one of the things I think it would be interesting to talk about just for a moment is we've heard a lot about you talking about how COVID impacted the industry last year. You've had, I don't know, 3 or 4 earnings calls since this happened, 3 at least, and it's come up in every one of them. You've talked about how that's impacted the industry and your business and things like that. But how has it impacted you personally?
So, personally, obviously, I have grown-up kids, and they moved back home. We're all kind of, in under one roof. We haven't had so many family dinners that we have had. They're a pleasure, to have the kids back home. But
Right.
at some point, kind of, I think everybody is looking forward to get back to their normal. In my case, Brett, what I did was, I was, CEO of a brand new company, and COVID was the only thing that we did not plan. And as it hit, I wanted to kind of, stay very focused. So I come to work every day. I'm doing this call right now from my office, and I just lock myself in, from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day, Monday through Friday, to make sure that I stay very focused on, innovating with my team, on kind of executing on, various things that we have promised to our customers and to our partners and to our investors. And that's been the life. But I'm absolutely looking forward to getting vaccine when it's my turn, so that things can open up a little bit more.
Yeah. So you've been coming to the office. I think most of your staff is not. I think it's your prerogative as a CEO to continue to go there. So you've actually been in the car driving there, maybe using your voice assistant. A lot of people haven't had as much car interaction over that period of time. But I think the more extraordinary thing I was thinking about is you just launched the company, and within 6 months, we went into maybe the most unusual period that we've had in 100 years in this country. And I can imagine that was a trial by fire.
It absolutely was. Absolutely was. It was gut wrenching. I go back 1 year ago, March 16th, 17th or so, when the big lockdowns were happening in California and the rest of the world. Absolutely, it was gut wrenching. We just didn't know what this means. Obviously many factories were shutting down, right? Car production was stopping. So we just didn't know how this is going to react, right? So obviously, we took some precautionary steps as a new company. But interestingly, Brett, things came back very strong, very positively strong. If you look at our financial results, we met or exceeded every single financial metrics that we promised our investors in September of 2019, 6 months, when we started the company. So we're very proud of that. But we are also, I'm very proud of, the support we received from our, customers and also from our employees, right? So I think everybody understood that we are in this together, right? And, that whole, piece worked out well. I mean, right now, to be very honest, as we are still fighting the virus, around the world with vaccine and vaccination and so on and so forth, right now the industry is facing some semiconductor shortages, which, by the way, are as a result of what happened 1 year ago, right? So basically, to the best of my knowledge, when the factories were shutting down, all the OEMs basically put a brake on the production. And what that basically did was, it created a domino effect where all the tier ones and tier twos also stopped. They canceled a lot of their semiconductor orders, and it takes a long time to kind of rebake the silicon, right? So I'm hoping this is a short-term thing that the industry is facing right now, but in terms of, I think overall car sales have been pretty strong because given COVID-19, people don't want to use shared transportation that much.
Oh, that's interesting.
So cars car sales has been pretty strong around the world.
Great. Okay, so I think what we should probably do is bring Simon up now. Hey, Simon, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you, Brett?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's an honor, and you're up late because you're coming to us from Germany. But I guess to get started, why don't you give everyone who are watching today a quick summary of your background and what you do at BMW?
Well, thanks. Yeah, I'm Simon Euringer. I'm responsible for the voice assistant and personalization at BMW. Been with the company for quite a while, and before that, I've run the R&D center over in the Bay Area, and so joined BMW as a software developer and always stick to software things.
We like having software developers out here. There's a lot of very technical people who are watching today. I know, we can see them in the list. So I think that's an important background for a lot of people in this industry to have. So you moved from Silicon Valley. I think it was about a year and a half ago, or just over a year ago. You moved back to Germany, correct?
Yeah, right.
So that must have been amazing too, because how long were you in Silicon Valley?
3 years, mid-16 to mid-19.
And then you moved back to Stuttgart.
To Munich, actually.
Oh, you're Munich. Okay,
yeah.
Great. So you moved back to Munich, and then Germany goes into lockdown.
Well, yeah, we're still. So we just got the announcement this evening that we are going to see another 3 weeks or so of lockdown. So this has just been announced, I just read it half an hour ago. So we're still in a kind of a lockdown. I think it's different though than you guys handle it. But so far, from a company perspective, I think we have managed to handle the situation quite well. We're looking forward to the launch of the iX vehicle in summer, autumn this year. So that keeps us busy, and so far we're doing quite well. I mean, obviously we're all waiting to get a proper haircut and see the hairdresser again, but so far I think it's fair to say that we're doing okay.
Right. So one of the things that I think everybody recognizes, that driving habits changed a lot over the last year because of the lockdowns and the limited availability of places to go, just because so few places are open, and then the change in work culture. What have you seen in your data around how that's changed in terms of people are driving and their driving habits, and when do you expect that to return, or if ever?
Well, obviously we see the drop in mileage, right? That's a significant one, and with that comes the drop in usage, obviously, right? If the car aren't moved so much, people are not commuting, so that is changing the behavior. We do see more shorter rides, or should we say less longer rides, and that's the most significant changes, I would say.
Got it. So this is a great honor to have you both here. And so what I thought we would do is have a little fun, and we could show, let's see the best way to do this. We can show some data, some brand new data that we have. That this is from national consumer surveys that we conducted in the US, Germany, and the UK over in the first month or so of 2021. And just to set it up for the audience, so this is people who were asked, first of all, do they have a car, and have they ever used a voice assistant in the car? And what we're seeing in the US is it's gone up a couple notches for all people in the US. 51% say they have used a voice assistant while driving. It's much higher in Germany, actually. So this is new data for me, because I haven't asked this question in Germany before. So I was very excited to see that. And then in the UK, even higher. So it looks like maybe even slightly more adoption of voice assistants in the car in Europe than in the US, which is different than what we see for some other surfaces like smart speakers. So I'll start with you, Simon. What were your thoughts when you saw this data?
First of all, we see the same exact numbers. So our data matches pretty much.
Okay.
And well, I mean, I think there are a couple of thoughts that come to our mind looking at this. So first of all, I think vehicle speed while using voice assistants and speech is so the way that people use the different modalities like touch, direct buttons, and speech is depending on vehicle speed a lot. For example, we see touch usage at the vehicle standstill is way higher, obviously, than while driving. And then if you have a vehicle at moderate speeds, then speech and voice usage is at its highest point. And when you see speeds like above 65 miles an hour, then steering wheel interaction is really getting percentage-wise more higher. So maybe because the average vehicle speed in Germany might be higher because we have less super short rides, which tend to be slower, right? So the super short rides, let's say 1 or 2 miles or 3 miles, right? They tend to be very, very slow because you might have like 2 red lights in between, and that kills your speed. So, and while you're doing this, touch is a pretty good modality. So that might be, or that is one of our conclusions why the adoption rate in Germany is a little bit higher, because the vehicle is operated more at a moderate speed, and that's where speech usage is generally higher.
Did you see a difference, or maybe with your internal data, have you seen these numbers change over the last year, either up or down?
Generally, we see adoption grow of voice, of the modality voice. That's a general trend. Right. We see differences, major differences to China, which is not on the slide here, but that's a different story there. Far less navigation usage over there, but so generally we see a constant increase and a constant opt-in rate also of the willingness to share data and have the online and the hybrid version. So generally a rising trend.
Great. How about you, Sanjay?
So I think. I was not very surprised to see that data. I think Simon gave some interesting insights. I agree with his observations. But from my standpoint, I think if China was on this list, you will see 85 to 90% adoption.
Really?
Yes, very high. We see, so we obviously monitor our connected services and see how the adoption and transactions are happening on our platform, and we see across the board. I was just looking at the data in prep for this meeting. I looked at the data for 3 Chinese OEMs, and the adoption was in that 85-90% range. For the others, other OEMs who are more stronger in, let's say, European or North American side, the adoption was in this, 35, 40% to 60% range. So this sort of data matches that. So that's one observation that I have. I think the second observation that I have about this is in our company, I have put a team together to absolutely focus on 2 things: on basically monitor user adoption, and then basically work on product enhancements to help adoption, and secondly, help marketing programs to help adoption.
Right.
This is a board level initiative in Cerence, and we monitor the KPIs at the board level. And the reason for that basically is that we believe that we as an industry can do a better job in telling our customers, what are the features that are available for them. I'll give you my own example, and this is an honest example, and this is not because Simon is here on the call with us. I'm being completely transparent and very honest. I drive a BMW, and my daughter drives a BMW. I have a 7 Series. She has a 4 Series. The voice commands and the voice interactions that I've learned for my BMW is from my daughter. When I bought my car, nobody, I went through, there is a Genius program, right, that BMW has, which by the way is a great program, so a Genius expert comes and tells you about the car and all that stuff. And very frankly speaking, I cut him short. I was in rush. I just wanted to buy the car and get out, and I did. and that I never really learned about the car, right?
Right.
Until my young daughter, who is much more kind of interested in the technology and all that stuff, and especially voice. The younger members of our families kind of are more using more technology, and she basically kind of figured out all the connected drive features. And when she would drive in the car with me, and she would say, "Dad, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that?" So since then, I'm using much more, but my learning is through her. So if we can bring some tools to help tell the drivers and owners, and this is, in my opinion, an issue across the board. Really, it's not really tied to any given one OEM, right? I think we will see better adoption, because many times owners don't even know what they have in the car.
Yeah, we actually have data.
I don't know, Simon, would you agree with that? I'm just giving you one user data, right, which is Dhawan family.
Totally agree. I mean, we see the adoption also being totally influenced by the outside of the car usage of all assistants that we all use day in, day out. And we will also bring forward the ways to interact via speech more prominently to the user. And I think that's one of the topics we will touch base on in our talk. And so I believe that there is a way more elegant way to interact with voice than to fiddle through some menus maybe. But you have to know. And if you don't know, then people are not so much keen to try. And that's what the playfulness, I think that is something we can be way better. And I think I'm looking forward to the launch this summer. I think we will see some great steps there by just putting the words onto the fingertips or into the user's mouth to even get
Right.
that conversation going.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. And I actually have some data that's going to be coming out probably end of this month or first of next month that talks about this idea of what consumers actually know about what their voice assistant can do. And consistently, some of them overestimate what they know, and many of them underestimate it, or actually many of them know that they're missing out on a lot of things. And before we get to sort of our key question for today, I thought this would actually be a good thing for us to discuss. This is some use cases. And so what we'll see here, just to orient everybody, so this is the in-car voice assistant use cases. And this is also from recent data, 3 countries there you can see. USA on the top, in the middle in the black is Germany, and then the bottom is the UK. And the top one is phone call. You can see the icon there. The second one is navigation. The third is texting, and the fourth is music. And so this is how they array. Now, there's a couple things that I see in here. One is in the first 3 use cases, what we see is that a broader usage among US voice assistant users for those specific use cases. That's different when we get to music. But in particular, the phone is used a lot more to initiate a phone call or something like that in the US than UK or Germany. Sanjay, any comments on the spread here of these top 4 voice use cases in the car and how this laid out in terms of the different countries?
No, I think the four use cases are the ones that we see in most being used. Making a phone call, getting directions, sending a message, and listening to music, right? As the use cases. In our platform, we call them domains, and kind of these are different domains, and what customers are using, what domains. Having said that, I think you will see more and more interesting adoption around the big kind of IoT ecosystems that exist outside the car, and interactions with that, and there are many OEMs, including BMW and others, are kind of working on many of those scenarios, which would be very, very interesting from a user standpoint.
What do you think, Simon?
Well, I agree to the numbers. I think Basically, I mean, the most spoken utterance ever always is yes or no, right? I mean, that's filtered out here. But yes, I think I agree to the numbers. If we would look at China, we would see a lot less navigation usage, obviously, and a lot more media usage, right? So it would be a different picture here. So yeah, I think that's the share, but that's not necessarily making us too happy, because I think we look at voice as a modality to control the vehicle. And the more we go switchless, the more we rely on the modality of speech and of voice. And so basically, we consider everything that a car can do to be doable via voice in a very easy, in a very elegant way. And that is something we would like to promote, obviously. And people just need a little, nudging and some tips to get that going. But we are positive that given a new UI and by introducing proactivity, I think we will see an uptick in other domains, right? Which is the car domain itself, control of any of the vehicle's functions, whatnot, right? Temperature, windows, whatnot. And I think that is going to be something at least we like to measure ourselves against, right? So we would like to see people handling their vehicle via voice more easily, more conveniently, and that is what we're striving for.
Yeah, we do have some data on this. So when our report comes out, we have another 10 or so use cases in the car. So we'll be able to break that out for the different countries. So I think people will really be interested in that. Our focus right now is on the things that are most used, and there's a really steep drop off after those first four. But this gets us into our first really big question for the day and the focus for the remainder of our discussion. And we'll start with you, Simon, because you've got some new things coming out this year. Really interested in how the use case breakdown is going to change over the next couple of years, because we're going to have these new use cases that have never before been available using voice in the car and actually interacting with sensors and proactive notifications. So Simon, why don't you talk about a few things you think is really going to change the relationship between the driver and the car going forward?
Well, I think if we refer to the modality of voice as to basically live up to what would be a good co-driver, right? In a conversation about the car to a good co-driver, then first of all, we need to learn, right? Our voice assistant needs to learn a lot. Needs to learn a lot about the context of the in-vehicle situation, how many people are on board, what's the mood, and about the situation that the vehicle is in, right? Are we speeding? Are we in a traffic jam? Are we on a regular commute or whatnot, right? So if we can bake the contextual information in and outside of the car to the AI, then I think we can be seeing the interactions with the vehicle much more elegantly via voice than they can be or than they are today. And that's what we would like to bring forward, and that's what we would like to promote. We clean up the dashboards, less switches, less hard switches. So the modality of touch and voice are getting more important, and the combination of those is getting more important. So multimodal interactions, right? Either simultaneously or consecutively, right? Starting a dialogue via voice and then selecting one of the result set items via touch. And so I think we are only happy when we see the modality of voice being used as much as it can be. And I think the contextual information of the situation in the vehicle, whether a function is appropriate or not to use, or even proactivity, right? Recommending a function that we are convinced that the user is going to select anyway in that situation, right? I think that is something that is going to change the in-cabin experience.
And one of the things you mentioned in our conversation a couple of days ago was that it's a different context if you're in the car alone versus you have passengers. And so you're working on the voice assistant and the multimodality interaction to try to optimize it based on how many passengers are in the car, whether it's just a single driver.
Definitely. I mean, we all know the situation, right? You have two people in a car. You are the driver, and you drop somebody off, be it your kid at school or your co-worker where you share your commute with or whatnot, right? The moment you are alone in the car, the situation changes, right? You are either starting to take phone calls, or you're changing the music, or you're opening the window, or you're lighting a cigarette, whatnot, right? So it changes. And I think the vehicle should be paying attention to that. And the vehicle should be getting the situation, and then help you manage, change directions, whatnot, right? So anything you do in a car can be done for you if we anticipate and interpret the situation better.
Hey, go ahead, Sanjay.
Yeah, sorry, Brett. I think this is the point that Simon is making. Absolutely, is a very important point, and is the future, because we sort of call it proactive AI, which is basically, instead of having an AI engine reacting to a driver or to an action initiated by the driver, how can the AI be more proactive? And this is something that is hugely a focus area for us as well. Obviously, getting feedback from OEMs like BMW, and there are many use cases, right? That come to mind. I mean, for example, when a fuel sensor goes on, why can't instead of the car just lighting up a light saying fuel is low, why can't the assistant at that point come on and basically say, "Hey, Sanjay, your fuel is low. Do you want me to add a fuel stop?" Simple. Every evening when I'm going home from work, the only reason I start my navigation in my car is to basically see what are the traffic patterns, right? Why can't the assistant figure it out that, at 6 p.m., I'm going on this route, learn, like Simon said, and basically, proactively tell me when there is a traffic situation on the route that I'm taking, basically, and at that point, make the adjustments. I can go on and on all day, right? But there are so many such scenarios, which proactively can kind of create very interesting use cases for the car to assist the driver and the passengers.
Hey, Simon, what features do you have coming up that you're most enthusiastic about, which are about this voice, or are going to be driven by this voice interactivity in the car?
Well, I think it is not so much the singularity of a feature, but it is the fact that we can bring. We want to make people fans of the vehicle, and we are convinced that if they use the vehicle or use the features of the vehicle more, they will be they will become fans. And so, like in China, a lot of people that happen to buy a BMW in China, they have not had another vehicle before. They might not even have grown up in a family that has had vehicles all their life. So they are basically first-time users of that device, right, of a car. And so they are not so much into all of the functions and features. And then it's built to a stock market, so people buy the cars off the lot. They mostly come fully loaded. So the cars has a ton of options, and people just don't know how to use them. So built to stock market is also the US, although people grow up with cars, obviously. But this is so one of the things we really want to bake into the upcoming vehicle is the way that the vehicle can demonstrate its ability to get contextual information and to bring proactive suggestions of features that you could use or that other people use in that situation, but you didn't. So that might be a good idea. And we can do that not only via voice, but we can do that like visually as well. So there are there is a loudness, so to speak, a volume slider, so to speak, where we can be very subtle, and we can raise our voice as an assistant in the vehicle. And I think this is something that we will carefully look at on how the vehicles are actually used. So the modality of voice is not so much a feature in itself, but it's basically a way to even better the way that you are mastering the vehicle and mastering the situation. And that is how we measure our success.
Hey, Sanjay, I've heard you talk about the idea that there's these 3 different modalities that are going on in the car. And I'd sort of laid out a couple of years ago this idea that the in-car experience was changing because we had the traditional in-the-car experience that we'd all become accustomed to, and we were starting to integrate it with all these digital services. And so we had the outside the car. And when you're in the car, you didn't have to give up all these things that were historically outside the car. And a lot of people started doing that with their phone. And then increasingly, we've seen that in the car. But you've added a third leg to that. And you talk about sort of the road or the immediate location context as well. And so bringing those 3 things together, I mean, what are you most enthusiastic about? Are you most intrigued by in terms of how we're going to bring those 3 pieces together? The personal life outside the car, the driving experience, and then the location context, and what that's going to do from a use case standpoint.
Yeah. So our view, Brett, is that a consumer, a driver, a family spends 1 to 2 hours of their day in a car, and the remaining 22, 23 hours they're spending outside the car. Right. And so the life of all of us is getting more and more digital, right? And there needs to be kind of seamless integration in the digital lives, both outside the car and inside the car. So we're all the products that we're designing with that one core assumption that life is getting more digital, and it has to be seamless, between your home, your office, your drive, and so on. Second core assumption that we're basically making in our product planning and architecture is that as consumers' lives are becoming more digital, they are always going to be using multiple different big tech ecosystems.
Okay.
Right? So if I look at my digital life, it's around Apple and Google and Amazon and Microsoft, all of them. I use their products and their services every single day, right? And so how do we kind of create a product which basically allows the consumers to kind of bridge to multiple of these big tech ecosystems from inside the car with a very simple kind of convenient voice interactions. So the use cases, that we are trying to enable are things like, you get close to your house and you say, hey, BMW, open up my, garage door and turn on my porch lights. Done. And, these things may be controlled by ecosystem A, ecosystem B, ecosystem C, a mixture of those, doesn't matter, right? Or you can, basically enable use cases like, you're, 50 meter away from your garage and, garage door automatically opens, So you kind of, create rule-based, voice-based interactions, right? To kind of, make, life simple for consumers. And coming back to kind of, modalities and interactions, clearly voice is one, and touch is, these are 2 very important modalities. But we are also taking the early steps to bring gaze and look, meaning eyes, into it. As we are interacting today, right now, on this phone call, on this video call, we all are using audio out, audio in, gestures, hand, which is sort of like touch, and eyes, right? And so, we're, we introduced a new product called Cerence Look, which basically uses kind of, gaze and GPS location, where a driver can be driving and kind of, look on one side and says, hey car, tell me what this building is about, and the car basically looks, uses the gaze information, the GPS location information, and maps it to the point of interests, picks the data, gives him or her that information, etc. But there are many use cases. I'm just using a very simple one here. Right. So the focus is to combine these modalities and create interesting interactions that are useful for the user.
All right, that's great. So what I think we should do now, and that's been, I really appreciate all that you've done right now. And I should tell people we're going to move into some of the Q&A that we have. We have a couple of questions. Actually, we have a lot of questions from the audience. But we're going to answer just a couple of them here. And what I should tell everybody, so Simon Euringer is from BMW, if you joined a little bit late. Sanjay Dhawan is CEO of Cerence. I'm Brett Kinsella of Voicebot.ai. And we've been doing these live series last week, this week. We have a new one coming up next week, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. But right after this, if we don't get to your question and you do have a Clubhouse account, try to join us in a Clubhouse room right after this. We're gonna set it up so that we can do a little overtime on the Q&A. Okay, so let's see. One of the questions that we have here is, okay, how do you see in-car voice assistants evolving with the radical pace of innovation that cloud vendors are bringing to the space? And so I think this goes back to maybe something you were talking about, Sanjay. Either one of you can jump in on this one. But this idea that the cloud vendors, predominantly being Amazon and Google, I think, in this space, have a lot of services for the car that people are accessing via voice. And in some cases here, now we have this opportunity to use multiple assistants simultaneously in the car.
Yeah. Simon, you want to answer? Should I?
I can jump in and you
Sure.
add. We have, obviously, choice is key to a premium product, and so we do share, obviously, the fact that we want to have as many ecosystems perfectly integrated into the vehicle. We do that with CarPlay, with Google Android Automotive. We have Alexa shipped in the car, and we do that as a remote software update, also in many hundreds of thousands of vehicles over the air, cars that are already in customer hands. And obviously, we have our own voice assistants. So, how do we see the in-car voice assistants evolve? Well, there is a clear vision that we have. We believe that the OEM's assistant is really clearly focused on the driving situation and the driving context. You might not be necessarily have to be in the vehicle, but it's a driving contextual information. I think the amount of information that we have about the situation, about the vehicle speed, about the passengers in the vehicle, whether you're close to your destination, whether you need a charge stop, whatnot, right? All of this information can be combined to very useful. So I think if you look at the evolution of in-car voice assistants, is they're getting better at being a specialist, and they are getting familiar with being one of the voice assistants that people access. Just because you happen to be in your car, you don't want to be disconnected to your Amazon account, right? And that is how we look at the world. So I think the evolution is pretty much being a specialist, being better of the situation in the car, and being aware that there is a coexistence to all the other digital parts of the ecosystem that our customers use.
I couldn't agree more. The work that we are doing with BMW and others is more vertical for the car. It's integrated with the sensors. It has the context and the use cases. It champions are for the driver from a safety, security, convenience standpoint. The other ecosystems and assistants that exist are more horizontal in nature, and they basically are optimizing for the daily use case of a consumer. And the ecosystem integration is a must, and we all believe in it. Our customers like BMW believe in it, we believe in it, and the coexistence is the right strategy.
Well, I think you were one of the first companies really to champion the idea of having multiple assistants, and you launched the Arbitrator product. I guess it was a little over a year ago now, so that would make it easier for OEMs to not only have their own assistant, but also to put on equal footing these other services that consumers really like.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. The concept of kind of arbitrating based on wake-up word, or even based on intent, although that becomes a little bit more controversial, right, to be honest. But we built that, and our focus always is that the automotive OEM like BMW should always have the control of, it's their vehicle. They should basically define what that experience is, and so on. So we basically kind of create the knobs for the OEMs, the business logic that the OEM can implement, for this arbitration.
That's great. Okay, so our last question, I think, Simon, you should probably answer. What is the BMW assistant's name?
Well, it's Hey BMW, if you like, or it's any other name that you want to give them. So we have a customizable wake word. And if you choose to use the default setting, then it's Hey BMW. If you choose to give it another name, then go ahead.
Well, I think you were the first to actually implement that sort of custom wake word. And I know that's something that you've given a lot of thought to, Sanjay. Do you believe that the future of wake words are going to be more on brand, like Hey BMW, or do you think that we're going to see a lot of consumers really personalize it and take it to something that's unique to them?
So I think you will see more and more kind of customization, right? Personalization and customization is human, right? We all have different tastes, styles, and we all like personalization and customization. So we're definitely driving more and more of that in our platform. So wake up word is one level of customization that we just discussed, but we're taking customization to the next level. We introduced a product called which is around voice cloning, which basically is also driving customization of audio out. So wake up word is audio in, right? Hey BMW, or whatever name you want to give it. But we also have a product. We have some OEMs in China who have started to adopt it, and hopefully others as well, where you can basically have an avatar with a custom voice, and that custom voice can be your daughter's voice, your own voice, could be your some other voice, right? Basically, so instead of a generic assistant voice talking back to you, you can actually have a clone voice, which you prefer talking back to you from a car standpoint.
Okay, so this has been great. So I have a couple of announcements as we wrap up, and then we'll come back to you and so that people can keep track of what you're doing. So first off, just everybody out there, keep in mind that we have an after show on Clubhouse right now. Well, it'll wait 5 minutes and then join Clubhouse, and you'll see us on there. So I know there's more questions that we can have those, and you can come up on stage and talk to Sanjay and Simon, and that's sort of a rare opportunity. So I definitely encourage as many people who can to do that. So that'll be fun. The other thing I should announce is that next week we have our third Voicebot Live, and this will be the last one for now. We did a little 3-pack here. We're going to do some more in the future. But just to let's see if I can bring that up. So we're going to have Baris Gultekin and Kathy Pearl from Google Assistant team, and we're going to talk about voice and mobile apps. It's one of the biggest trends going on right now, and I think that a lot of people here a lot of people who are watching today have spent a lot of time thinking about this. Google Assistant has a ton of information on this. They've got 500 million monthly active users of Google Assistant. Most of those are on the smartphone. So Barrett's going to talk to us about what they're doing, what the feature sets that are driving voice use on mobile. And Kathy, who a lot of you know is one of the leaders in conversational design, is going to spend some time talking about what the impact is on user experience and actually how it's going to evolve the experience of the mobile app user experience. So that's going to be really fun. So definitely go to voicebot.ai/live. And you can register for that and you'll get your notification. We're also going to do a cool giveaway like we have the last couple of weeks. And so that'll be fun. And let's see. We're going to give this away. Let's see if people can see that. There we go. Right there. But I'm going to do that on Clubhouse again. You don't have to be on Clubhouse to win. We're going to pick someone who registered. But I just want to let you know that that'll be a little bit easier because I actually have to wrap this up. So many thanks to my guest today. I'm Brett Kinsella. You guys know me. Follow us on voicebot.ai. Follow me on Twitter @Brett Kinsella. We got a lot of charts and a lot of data we're sharing this month. So you're definitely going to want to do that. And come to Voicebot Live next week. It's going to be really interesting. We're going to talk about that mobile app. So we had the car. Talked a little bit about smart speakers last week. We're going to talk about the mobile app, which is going to be really important. Hey, Simon, how can the people viewing today learn more, keep track of what you're doing with Hey BMW and the assistant in the car?
Well, we put quite some information out on the website. With CES this year, obviously being fully digital, we produced a series also for the upcoming launch of the iX, and there is a lot of assistant talk in there. So basically the car introduces itself, and so I think that is a good resource to check out bmw.com website. All
right, perfect. And Sanjay, how can people keep track of what you're doing? Aside from, I should tell everybody, Voicebot.ai covered the CES announcement from BMW. So Eric, as everyone knows, Eric Schwartz did an extensive write-up on that. So that's also a good place to start. And we've been writing a lot about new features from Cerence, particularly over the last year, because it's really been a cavalcade of new features coming out. But Sanjay, how should people keep track of what's going on in the Cerence world and the new features you're implementing for automotive?
Yeah, so our website, cerence.com, is one place, right? So we make, announcements, but through our social channels as well. So we do have a LinkedIn channel and a Twitter channel for Cerence, and my own LinkedIn channel. We always kind of, make sure that through those, social channels, we're basically communicating, anything new that's going on in our world.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be on Clubhouse in just a moment for everybody. So come back next week. Join us for Voicebot Live episode 3. And until then, bye-bye.